Hey guys, Samantha, nice to meet you. Also, thanks for having me. I am from Connecticut, and this is actually only my second time in Chicago. The first time was in June when I graduated, so happy to be here. As Jen mentioned, I work at GE. I've been with GE for about 7 years now, in a multitude of different roles, technical roles, but in the function of learning and development. I lead design, research, and personalization for our corporate learning and development group. And what my hope for today is it'll be more of a conversation than anything. I'd love to share with you guys what we're working on right now, a multitude of the products that we have for digital learning, and then kind of walk you through how we got there and the transformation that it took to get there. And then I'll take questions and we'll see where you guys are at with what's going on in your life, and maybe there are some things that are applicable. Maybe you have questions specifically about some of the products, and we'll kind of just take it from there. So at a high level, and is this voice good? Sound good? Everything? Okay, awesome. At a high level, GE is going through a huge transformation. The DNA of the company is changing in age, tenure, and location. We operate in about 180 different countries, and over 50% of our employees are outside of the US. So looking at the shift in population, and this has started probably over 5 years ago now, we started to think about how do we shift our thinking, how do we shift the way that we are training our leaders of tomorrow. Right now, GE has a leadership institute for learning. It's called Crotonville. It's in upstate New York, Ossining, New York, if you're familiar with Westchester area. And it's 52 acres, and it's a beautiful campus. I mean, you've got all these different types of flipped classrooms and hoteling space and cafes and dining rooms, bars, activities, and employees are sent to this leadership institute to get some sort of training at transitional points in their career. So it could be early career, it could be mid-career, becoming a manager, becoming a people leader, wanting to learn how to manage your team better, or even something as specific as designing and thinking about how you work differently in the space that you have given today. The only issue with our campus is that it takes an employee an average of 5.5 years to actually get to go. And we have 300,000 employees, so we can only serve about like 40,000 a year. And that's not really fair, right? So 5.5 years to get there, 300,000 people in the company, and does that mean if you're not picked in that 1 year, you don't get access to leadership content, leadership quality experiences, or learning? So around this time, we were tasked with reimagining this concept of learning, leadership learning specifically, and how can we extend what happens at Crotonville, at that campus, across the globe? Since I said like 50%, over 50% of our employees are outside of the US. So how do we get them access to high quality content without them having to get to a physical location or having to wait 5.5 years to get there? So my small but mighty team and I came together in 2014 to try and figure out what learning looks like at GE. And when we did that, we did a lot of research across the organization and quickly learned that learning is defined in hundreds of thousands of different ways. And we had about, I want to say like 11 pages, like Word doc pages full of links on all the different learning sites that existed. So imagine yourself coming to the company, either you're a new employee or maybe you've been with the company for a while and you want to learn something different or you want to learn something new. Somebody told you need to improve your presentation skills. Somebody may have said, hey, you should take a project management course. Well, if there's that many sites to get to, it's pretty much impossible for you to find the content that you're looking for. So what we did was, going through that research and learning about people's experiences, we had to sunset all of those different sites and try to create one place for learning, like a one-stop shop that everybody could get to no matter where they were. And we learned that we kind of had to throw away all of the concepts that we were using in the past and start new. And I say that because, when we tested with people about their experiences and kind of looking at the different sites that were out there, people said, well, even if I got to this site, I wouldn't know how to use it. I wouldn't know that this is the section that you get to find all the books, or this is the section that you get to get to the courses, or this is the section that you get to get to the articles. I mean, they said if it's a book, call it a book. If it's a course, call it a course. There's no need for fancy titles. We have a lot of things to do during the day, and learning is a privilege for us, but if you make it too hard for us to learn, we're not going to come back to this site. So what we decided to do was essentially flip the whole model on its head and use design thinking and user experience to build in learning. And this was very new, so obviously there was a lot of pushback. There's a lot of space over here if you guys want to sit. There was a lot of pushback at first because not a lot of people are used to this concept of UX or design thinking, and they didn't know what it meant. So basically what we had to do was kind of work our way upwards and put our learners, our employees, at the center of the process and ask them what they want. What are you looking for? What's going to make you come back and actually want to learn? At GE, we like to say that you own your leadership and development, you own your career, but if you own it and we're not providing you an easy way to get to it, that's really not fair. So I like to say it was a massive evolution and a lot of MVPs, and so minimally viable products. So what we started off with was testing the concept of, okay, we know that certain people, based on their searches, are searching for presentation skills, are searching for project management, are searching for communication, are searching for finance. We know that as a start. So how do we take what we know and build something small and test to see if it's worth it to build something bigger? And so we developed these small little hubs. They were all based on particular subjects. So like I said, finance, project management, presentation skills, communication. And we tested it out in the different areas. And we wanted to make sure we hit the most remote areas of GE as well, because we've got folks living in sub-Saharan Africa, and they don't have great access to internet when they get to their house. So, for us, it was about the content and then the reach, and that's what we started. So that ended up being pretty successful. People said that they loved it, and I like to say that good UX is never 100% done. Between 2014 and 2018 today, we've evolved over maybe 8 different versions of our website, and we've expanded from having just topics to now having a multitude of topics and a multitude of different types of content. And when we started, not only did we start with these topical hubs, we wanted to test the concept of bite-sized learning and the idea that, okay, if you don't have time to go and take a course, could you do something else? Do you want to do something else? And everybody said, yeah, we're really interested in doing other things. If I don't have time to take a course, whether it's self-paced or whether it's in the classroom, I do have time to listen to a podcast when I'm commuting. I do have time to watch a video on my lunch break. I do have time to read an article. So how can we incorporate more of that and build out paths for people who don't want to take a course or a multitude of courses and would much rather do this smaller bite-sized learning? So we also tested that concept out too before building out this massive platform. We started with a blog, and it spread like rapid fire. And the concept of the blog was, in 300 words or less, share some sort of personal learning experience, and then attach either a video, a book, an article, and see what happens. And always ask at the end of the post, ask a question like, what do you think? So we were starting to do this push and pull kind of learning, and it turned out to be that was the most popular. So right now, our blog is called Smart Bits. It's internal to the company, but it's one of the most popular ways that people prefer to learn. And I mean, if you think about it, and think about the world that we live in today, we live in a very fast-paced digital world. So your experiences outside of wherever you work or wherever you go to school are going to influence your behaviors and what you expect inside of school or inside of your workspace. So, I mean, technology and applications have a short shelf life. So if you want to design a product that is going to be something that people want, you have to work with your people. And I think that was one of our biggest eye openers. I mean, think about it. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you tend to do is you grab your phone, you check your messages, you check your LinkedIn, you check your Facebook, you check you check everything before you even maybe talk to somebody. And so you have already these behaviors and these habits that you expect from using all of that stuff. And now, you get to the learning stuff, and the question becomes, how can you make learning as addictive as Facebook? How do you make learning as smart as Amazon, as easy as Google search? And begin to try to apply those concepts in the learning space. And so that's what my team and I have done over the past few years in trying to build out some of our digital experiences online. And so today, and I know that's cutting off a little bit, but today our platform is called Brilliant You, because we believe that we can empower you to be more to feel like you're going out there and getting your learning. It's not something that we're telling you have to do. So empowering you to make a more brilliant us as a collective. So that's the idea. And like I said before, we started off with, when we first started, we just did topics. And then after we did topics, we released a whole new site with just 2 pages. It was a course page and an about page. And that became really big. So we started testing out the smaller stuff, the videos, the blogs, the podcasts. So today, we like to call Brilliant You a distributed learning platform. And what it does is connect employees and data and content all together in one. The goal is to be kind of like the Amazon marketplace for learning. And you can go, and it's more of a channel, a content aggregator for you to choose whatever kind of learning method that you prefer most. And so we've got access to 24,000 courses, 2,000 videos, over 810 blogs, 55 different podcast series, 1,700 books, and then we've got articles, documents, and then access to different content providers. So not everything is GE baked. I mean, our bread and butter for GE is really the leadership training and that curriculum. But if you don't go to the campus, you don't get it. So what we've been trying to do is more experimentation, where we're bringing in other content providers, courses available through different universities, or just other content vendors like Skillsoft, Books 24/7. So if you were seeing something that you liked, and a lot of people like Lean In, so all of a sudden you can go onto the site and you can get a free copy of Lean In. So we've provided a multitude of different content experiences for folks, and we found that people keep coming back for more on the stuff that they don't have to sit down and take themselves, or if they're not nominated to attend the campus stuff. We've also been doing some really cool innovation integrations. So we're trying to connect all of our systems together and make this learning site smarter. So we've connected it to what's called an LRS, a learning record store. So now, based on what you do in the system, it starts to not track you, but help suggest other things for you. I mean, we believe that learning should be inspirational. It should be social. It should be a habit. And so, how do we continue to create that habit for people? And part of that, I would say the bite-sized consumable, a lot of people like to call it snackable content. In that concept, we're trying to take that and build a mobile app. So over the last year and a half, we've been working on a mobile app just for people on the go. The concept is like commuters, or when you're not at your desk physically. Can you take stuff with you and go? The same that you would do if you were on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on Twitter. You're reading articles there. Could we curate stuff for you on an app that you have on your phone, that you don't have to be connected to the Ethernet or to a Wi-Fi, or if you don't have great access to internet when you get home? And the answer is, I mean, it's beta, but it's been yes. So this app is focused on just taking the books, the videos, the articles, and the podcasts, and giving people the ability to get to it easier instead of having to go on the site and download it from there. So you could just download it on your phone, and if you're commuting in the train, if you're in your car, you can listen to a podcast, or if you're on the go and you want to watch a video at home instead of logging on your laptop, you could log on your iPad. So that's the concept of the mobile app. And then we have, now 2 big applications. The bigger question becomes, how do we continue to improve that experience? What's going to make it better? And the answer that we've, found out is that it has to be personal. And so we did a lot of research over the last year and a half. I did a lot of that research, and also as part of my capstone. And we spoke to people in the company, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, you have to talk to the people who are using your applications. Because if you don't talk to them and expect them to show up, they're not going to show up. Or if they show up and get frustrated, they're not going to come back again. And so our 2 biggest people that we were targeting were the individual contributor and the people leader, which makes up, most of the workforce. And what we heard from them is that they want things to be personalized to them, because they're on the go, they're on the move, they've got a lot of work to do, and there's not much time for them to sit down and do some sort of leadership development or career navigation planning. And so how can we help them with some of their obstacles, and also continue to push out some of the stuff that we've been working on? So what we heard was that folks want real-time suggestions on the feedback that they receive from their managers. So if you're having a discussion with your manager or HR person, and that person tells you, you're really great at communicating, but maybe you could be better at empathy and having some emotional intelligence when you're speaking to your teammates. Maybe you could understand them a little bit more and work with them better. So you've received that feedback, but then again, what do you do with that? Where do you go to find the content to get to it? Some people know about the learning platform that we've built. Other people don't know about it. But if they're receiving that kind of feedback, is there a way in that real-time moment for us to give them access to content that's very specific to the feedback that they received? So if there's an emotional intelligence course that they could take, or a podcast that they could listen to understand a little bit more about it, could we feed that to them in that moment? So that was, question number 1. Question number 2 is career development and career navigation. A lot of people ask, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And some people's response is, I don't know, or I really like what the CFO does, or I really like what the CIO does. Maybe I want to go down that path, but I don't know how they got there. And so can we somehow build out career paths for them and supplement with content or supplement with other jobs? So if it takes, a CIO 7 years to get to be CIO, could we take an average of what that, all the CIOs did to get to that spot? And then could we start recommending other jobs for people based on what we know to get them up that ladder? And then if not jobs, could we recommend content? Could we recommend courses for them to take? If you want to be the next, designer, how many things do I need to do to be that designer? Do I have to take a course, or could I watch a series of videos and then kind of figure it out from there and go? So that was big question number 2. And then the last 2 are pretty similar. I want to know, or I want to receive content around my skills and my own capabilities, things that I want to continue to improve, things that I want to build on, and then my interests. Maybe I've been in finance all my life, but marketing sounds exciting, and I want to hop from finance to marketing. How do I do that? What's the beginner level of marketing? What do I need to know? So could you provide that to me if I asked? So those are the big questions we've been kind of doing a lot of research on over the last year and a half. And with that, thinking about personalization and thinking about where we could go, it really just means that, can we take big data, what we know about the people who work at the company and what people are providing to us, and add learning, and then create a smarter organization? So we're trying to do that. We've been working on building some artificial intelligence. So this is where the personalization of what I do and it comes into play here. And it's really important for us because we've got to kind of take the thread, the digital thread, and tie it through all of our different systems and see what we can kind of pull at the end. Oops. To give you a little bit of a breakdown of like how you can even get started on doing something like that, and what we've been thinking about is we'll take learning assets, all the learning types of content that we have within our systems, and then any kind of employee learnings that have been captured, and employee profile information. So like how long you've been with the company, where do you work, what are your skills, what did you load in your resume when you submitted for the job, and then information about who your people leader is. And we call those your interactions and your attributes. And we pop them all into our engine. And then in the engine, all that data is sorted, weighted, and identified based on the criteria that we've given, and then refined into an algorithm that's exposed on the other end. And the algorithm itself is giving personalized recommendations per person. And then we're working on figuring out similar employees. So let's say me and Jen, we don't know each other, and we might work across the globe, but we have similar interests and similar interactions with the website. It might suggest things to Jen that I've done that she hasn't done yet because they noticed that a trend in what I've been doing. So it's kind of similar to that concept on Amazon. People who bought this also bought this, but applying it to learning. So we've been working on that, and then working on recommending the just-in-time type of learning. So, you're a service engineer and you're out in the field and something breaks in either the MRI machine or the engine. What do you do? Like, what do you do in that moment? I mean, most people's first thought is go on YouTube and try to see if I can fix the engine. But obviously our content is not on YouTube. So can we give people that kind of content on the go just in time if they need it wherever they are servicing some sort of product? So that's the idea of how we're using our algorithms. And I can go into a little bit more detail here on one example. Within our mobile app and within our desktop, we're using it on the homepage. So really trying to get, when you come in and whatever you've liked, whatever you've rated, whatever you've commented, whatever you've completed, it's adding all that stuff up and kind of spitting out other recommendations for you. And you have the opportunity to say, yes, it makes sense, or no, it doesn't, it's not relevant to me at all. And it's only helping us learn a little bit more about what we're doing right and what we still need to work on. This example is one of my favorites, and this is kind of what I was referring to before. We have a performance development tool at GE, and our performance development has really gone under a massive transformation in the last several years as well. And we've moved away from doing like yearly reviews because most people, they do all their projects, they do good, they do bad, they do in between. Then you get to the end of the year and you can't really remember all of the things that you did. And so you have to have this conversation with your manager and potentially HR, and how can you remember everything if it's been a year? And maybe you miss out on all the good stuff, or maybe you forget a few things that are really important, and then that whole thing decides on your promotion, your bonus. So there's a lot weighing on that one interview. So we changed the whole process and decided to do away with it and give people the opportunity to do more real-time feedback. So you could be sitting in here with your app on your phone, and you could send me an insight either to continue doing a good job or to consider doing something slightly different based on whatever it was I was doing. And you can send it to a peer, you can send it to a colleague, you can send it to somebody you don't know who's presenting something to help them along or to give them encouragement that they did a great job. You can send it to HR, you can send it to your manager. So it's not any kind of like hierarchy of who you can send one to. And what we learned is that, a lot of people who do receive these consider insights don't know what to do with them. So they get an insight that says, you need to work on your presentation skills. And they're like, all right, maybe I'll get back to it one day. Or I don't know where to go to get access to stuff to help me with my presentation skills. Is it possible to somehow loop our learning system with our performance system and connect them with the AI that we've been working on. So we tested it out over the past couple years too, and the answer is yes. We've been teaching our AI through natural language processing some phrases that people say of how they build out when they're about to give somebody a consider. Usually they bake something good, bad, good. And so you can kind of pull the phrases and start teaching the AI that, oh, when you hear, XYZ, this means it's going to be slightly a negative response. So the next word thereafter, pick up on whatever we have in our content library and start suggesting. So right now, if you were to receive an insight, a button would pop up that says View Learning Recommendations. So it's not a have to. There's no have to do anything anymore. You can hit it, and it will take you into our system, which is over here on the right, and it will tell you that we've now pulled your insight into our AI, and it's going to spit out some recommendations. Feel free to take any of these recommendations, tell us if they were relevant, not relevant. You can save them or open and actually take it. So that's what we've been playing around with recently to just try to give people an opportunity to actually improve on whatever it is that someone gave them feedback on. So it's not like they just got dropped off and then that's it, and they might get another feedback like that later on. And I know a lot of people like to ask this question, how do we stay relevant in the learning space in a corporation? GE's Leadership Institute was built in 1956, so it's really old. And we're constantly being asked to reinvent ourselves. And one way that I like to do that is by taking on design thinking and UX and applying it to learning. I know that most people, UX is very, very new as a term, but it's been here forever. And a lot of people who do know about UX know that it's an IT thing. And so oftentimes we get met with, well, this is in IT, this is learning, why should we even incorporate it? Well, because it's actually really helpful. It's great for brainstorming, it's great for imagining and creating new things, and it's great for improving a process. So for us, when we say how do we stay relevant and how do we imagine the learners of the future, we really embrace design thinking. At the beginning of every year, we like to think like 3 or 4 steps ahead, and we'll do a whole ideation process where we just imagine what the learner of 20 whatever will be. So let's say 2025. What are your expectations in 2025? People have said they expect bots. They expect physical, like actual bots and like robots roaming around telling you what to do. Holographic presenter, so folks up here who are not actually physically here. Recommendations actually was something that was suggested like 5 years ago. So it's really cool that 5 years later we're able to start working on that. And so by doing these crazy fun ideations at the beginning of the year, it helps us plan the roadmap for the rest, and we kind of work backwards. What could we actually accomplish from this like map here this year, and then or what are the small stepping stones to get there, and then next year we can jump off from there. One of them is like the coaching. Coaching is really cool, and oftentimes we do coaching in person. We'll bring in executive coaches and folks who are part of that 45,000 employee group who get to go to the campus, get one-on-one coaching on whatever assessment that they've taken or that their colleagues have submitted on their behalf. But what about people who don't get to come to the campus or are out in the field somewhere? Like, when do they get coaching? So we've been working on figuring out how do you design a coaching network where the coaches can sign up and then the people are recommended to the right coach. Because there's coaches for everything. So you want to make sure you're getting recommended the right coach. So that's something that's been on our roadmap for a really long time, but we haven't had the technology to help us get there. We can do coaching in a physical location, like the campus or maybe even in an office building. But what if your coach doesn't work in your office? What if your coach is across the country? So that's one that's been on our roadmap for a while. But like I said, you kind of work backwards and try to catch the low-hanging fruit first and see where you can climb from there. Okay, the last section I've got before I open it up for questions is, I mean, I know I've been talking for a long time and it sounds like it's been a walk in the park, but the reality is it's been pretty hard to get to where we are today. GE's 126 years old, and like I said earlier, we've really been going through a massive transformation to try to accommodate the fact that we're a younger company and younger employees, and the tenure of how long people are staying with the company is getting smaller and smaller. You're not going to find these 30-year employees anymore, or these 20 years, or even 10 years. I mean, it's shocking to most people that I've worked there for 7. So it's changing, and part of the change is learning how to deal with a lot of the obstacles and the pushback from people who've been there longer, and working through it. I mean, within learning itself, a lot of the structure of learning is a lot older and classroom based. So the ability to do experimentation and try things smaller, MVPs that don't cost a lot of money, that was very new to the space. This is only 5 years old. And then, like I said, a lot of the learning community wasn't prepared for it, and felt threatened by it, but felt threatened by digital. But the reality is that digital is kind of all around us, no matter what we do, even before we enter the workforce or the office. And then, looking at how we measure learning, that's one of the hardest questions. A lot of people ask us, what's the ROI on this? And it's hard to give just a real metric or a number. I mean, how do you know that anybody learned anything? Sure, you could test them, but you can't really test people in the workplace and then just base it off of an exam. Yeah, sure, we can say that 35 people attended this class, but do we know that 35 people were engaged in the class, that they were listening, that they took away, the biggest lessons from that class and then applied it? So we're looking at different ways of storytelling and figuring out all the different metrics that count as a return on engagement versus a return on investment. And it's the same concept of, like, why do you stand in line at Starbucks and wait for 20 minutes to get the same coffee that maybe you could get at a bodega or something like that for 5? It's the experience of being at Starbucks. It's that brand that maybe you really like. You like that coffee, even though maybe if you did a taste test, it doesn't taste very different from a regular coffee on the side of the street. So we're trying to kind of use that mentality to change the way people think about measuring learning. And then, no matter what you do, I guess one of our big components is you got to continue to just say the same story, tell the approach, and hope that it sticks. A lot of people, it's going to take them a lot longer. Change management is one of the hardest things. So it's kind of all about just repetition and trying to get to people on their own level, using a lot of empathy and emotional intelligence to get there. Takes a lot of time, and then there's a lot of different systems within our organization. There's a lot of organizations within organizations, so it's really just working with different people and being able to suggest different opportunities when you get pushback. And the last bullet I've got on there is focus on the customer. I mean, at the end of the day, our customer is our learners are our employees. The same would be here, right? Your customers are your students. If they don't like the experience, they're not coming back. So consistently check in with who they are, create these personas of who they are, and have them live and breathe with you. So, if you hear back that it was really difficult to access some sort of content, to play a video, well, why was it really hard? Let's take a look and see. So that kind of wraps up what I've got, and I would love to open it up for any questions or thoughts or comments. Oh, yeah.
So a lot of feedback and suggestions for additional learning look to be primarily within your own learning platform. Are there ways that you're able to incorporate outside learning into those pathways?
Yeah, great question. So I like to think of the platform as a content aggregator. It's not 100% all of GE content. So we've got things like Safari books, we've got Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, every external provider you can think of, TED Talks, YouTube. Um, and we pull through that kind of data in as APIs into the platform. So if you were to search on anything, it's searching through all the records that we have. So if we have any RSS feeds from them, and you're looking for a specific type of content on, I don't know, leadership, it'll pull everything that we've got, and then you can filter based on the provider. So if you were only interested in the Harvard stuff, Harvard stuff it is. So yeah.
So who curates all that external content?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we have a small but mighty team. I have a couple people who are in that curation space, and what they do is they kind of go out and see and test all the different providers and see what kind of content's available, what the licensing looks like, and then can we pull them in and pull them in for how long, and then based on the engagement, so how many hits are we getting on those that content coming from that specific provider? Do we maintain the contract? Do we do more stuff with them? Yeah.
So you mentioned the use of personas quite a bit, and I know one of the challenges with personas is they get stale. And so are you looking at the AI clustering that ends up creating these personalized recommendations as a way of also trying to keep your personas fresh in terms of like what sort of clusters you're identifying?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I like to say that you have to keep your personas alive. I know they're on paper, but you really have to update them constantly. And not one persona is going to be the same persona for every single person. It's kind of like if we can solve for this general one, we've solved for like X amount underneath it. And so with that AI, what the goal is to really try and get as personal as we can with like the privacy stuff, to give people the content that they want, or to give people access to jobs and skills and all these other suggestions at a more specific level. So yeah. Yeah.
Have you found whether management has been budgeting this into a worker's time, or is this an additional thing that now workers are asked to do outside of their normal work hours, so on their commutes or over the weekends, or is it actually baked into the 40 hours a week that they get? They get 5 hours for this.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So the only type of learning that is asked is compliance. So usually compliance is at the beginning of the year, you have to do some sort of compliance training to make sure you're compliant with the rules of the company. And then if you work in a regulated job, in order to continue doing your job, that's the need to do type of stuff. So in order for you to be that service engineer, it might be built into your job that X amount of days you have to take a learning, and then it has to be proven that you've taken that. Then you do your job, and then in X amount of days you do it again. So that's different than what this is. This is for curious learners. This is for people who want to be lifelong learners. We're not pushing anyone to do anything. We're providing people with opportunities to do stuff. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but GE is big on learning, and they like to consider it as a privilege to be able to attend. And people who work there, for the most part, get really excited to be able to take one of these like in-person classes. So that's kind of how this all started. It's a big privilege when you go to the campus. You're going there for a week, you're going there maybe for 2 weeks, and you're outside of the space of what you normally work on, and you get to work on yourself. A lot of it is reflective, a lot of it is personal leadership, and then the incorporation of other aspects of how you could potentially improve your working space and build relationships with others. So we've been trying to take that kind of inspirational learning and apply it online and extend it for anybody else who's interested. So all of this stuff is not necessary. It's really just if you want to, it's available for you. So you don't have to do it at work, but if you wanted to build it into your daily routine or weekly routine, no one would tell you no. they would actually be like, yeah, go for it. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Are there any components of the on-campus experience that you might be able to use and make available digitally?
Yeah, awesome question. We've actually just started doing experimentation with that. So we get to have like oftentimes the campus instructional designers will do really cool things like bring in keynotes like Captain Sully, for example, and have him talk about his leadership in that moment, in those moments where he was trying to land the plane on the Hudson. And you know, if you're not physically there, you miss it. So what we're doing now is bringing in video recording, and if we know that there is a topic or a keynote that's like really cool, what we're doing is recording it, and then we are attaching smaller other bits of content that may be applicable to that speech, and then creating almost like a series. So we've been experimenting with that for like a month now, and it's going pretty well. So I think we're gearing up to do a little bit more similar to, I don't know if you guys, if you're familiar with TED. TED sometimes will give you the video, and then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it'll have like articles and other things that you could listen to or read, similar topic. So yeah.
Like about how many or percentage of your employees are actually using this like portal that you built?
150,000.
Okay. And like how are you promoting to your employees about this?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. So we have, we're very lucky that we have somebody who's good at marketing on our team. I mean, we're a team of unicorns, I'd like to say. I mean, we've got coders, we've got people in UX, we've got people who are just learning designers. We've got a vlogger, a podcaster, and we're like right now down to a team of 4. So all of us are wearing these hats, but the person who does do the marketing is really great. She uses MailChimp, and then we have Yammer and a few other social social networking platforms that we kind of tie into. So if you've subscribed to the website, you can choose how often you want to receive something. So there's the newsletter type of subscription. Then we use Yammer to post about certain types of courses or initiatives that are running. Sometimes they tie into what's going on at the company. So we are able to kind of hatch onto that too, and kind of take people through there. And then the blog that I mentioned earlier, that actually brings in the most traffic because it's just really fascinating for people to read about other people's experiences and then see what some sort of learning is attached to it. And that one is just fully user generated, so it's not just us blogging. Other people go in there and blog too. And we did a lot of that was a lot of guerrilla efforts to start, and it's been pretty cool because we have some senior leadership, like our chief HR officer and our chief legal officer have actually gone on there and written their own without us asking them to do it, and then that gets even more views. So, yeah. Sure.
I apologize, maybe I missed it in the beginning. Is it only available for GE employees?
Yeah, so right now it's only available for GE, but maybe in the future we'll be opening it up. Not as interested in? Good question. I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head, but I could tell you that our most popular one is Excel. And we didn't know that that was going to be the most popular one. We don't have any courses on Excel, so then one day we decided, well, I guess we need to start building out videos on how to use Excel. So there's a whole productivity section on the website dedicated to that. Right now, what's always been popular is communication. A lot about like coding, design thinking is popular, and somewhat like of our operational excellence type of stuff because the culture is shifting a little bit into that. So we're getting a lot of hits on that. Finance is a popular one, like the balance. How do you do like balancing your checkbook and things like that? Like you'd be surprised what people plug into the searches. I know, I was looking this way. Was there any questions on this side?
More in detail with the idea of measuring learning.
The Sure. Yeah, I mean, what we're looking at, we're trying to figure out the best way to tell the story. So obviously, we're looking at completions, but you can only really track completions for courses. Um, we don't have right now the technology to track if somebody read the entire article. They can mark it as complete. We have that option to mark any type of learning on the website as complete. So we're tracking whatever they've said they've done, plus what we know they've done, as one part of the story. But the other part of the story is, are they coming back? Is that person coming back to do more of it, or did they just do that and did they leave? And so that whole concept of return on engagement and how engaged are they? How engaged are they? How long are they staying on the site? How many articles did they read? In what time period did they read them? So we're looking at averages and trying to figure out what's the best story, especially for us because we are bringing in all these different types of content providers, and a lot of them, you jump out of our system and into theirs. So maybe they are tracking, but we can't get access to their data. So there are a lot of missing pieces to the puzzle. So, when people ask, well, what's the ROI on it? It's really hard for us to say, well, this, 60% of our participants are doing this, and just this. We need to figure out what else are they doing. And it's not bad that they bounced off of our page because they bounced into Harvard's or they bounced into MIT or, whatever it is. So that's, it's been something that's a work in progress for us. Does that help answer the question? Cool. Yeah. 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 Any other questions?
Metrics that you're using to determine relevance and to not overwhelm your employees with the amount of content that they're receiving?
Yeah, that's a good question because that comes back as a lot of times the feedback. Your site is great, but it's overwhelming. I don't know where to start. And that's kind of why we went down the path of building out an AI to start recommending things. Because if you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know what you want, maybe a suggestion in the beginning helps you get closer to what you want. We have about 50,000 assets available. So we've been working on also improving our search. Because if you're searching for something and then have the ability to just do really good filter, you could get closer to whatever it is you're looking for than if we just had 50,000 assets out there and then you get to the page and there's just way too much going on. So we've been working a lot on our taxonomy and how we tag content and making sure it's a clean tag and calling something for exactly what it is. If it's a leadership training on environmental health and safety, just don't call it leadership training because if somebody types in leadership, environmental health and safety is coming up. So it's hard, then, you get that overwhelmed, frustrated feeling. So a lot of it is working on how things have been organized in the back end and then just enhancing how they appear in the front end. Okay. All set. Awesome. Thank you, guys.